Hey everyone, this is Kevin the Entrepreneur, and today we are going to talk about a new, which, new is relative terms, it's been around for a couple of years, but now it's getting some attention for two reasons. One, oh geez, I messed that up. Hey everyone, this is Kevin the Entrepreneur, and we want to talk about a new startup company today called Cruise. Now, new is probably a relative term. It's been around for a year or two, I believe, but it's getting a lot of attention for two reasons. One, they have been acquired by General Motors, and two, they are determined to launch a self-driving taxi fleet by next year. Basically, they want to create the Uber and Lyft competitor before Uber and Lyft get out with the self-driving cars, and they've got the backing of General Motors, so they feel they can do it. Now, first of all, I want to say it's great that there is a competitor to Uber and Lyft. There is. Hopefully it will be a competitor. It's disappointing that, of course, the competitor is without drivers. I mean, that is the ultimate goal for all these companies. Let's not kid ourselves. They want to get rid of us. Will that make the cars cheaper? I think we've expressed doubts about that, but the thing is they're going to head forward to it, and we're just going to have to see if they can actually deliver what they promise. And a new report has come up to show some of the hurdles that the self-driving future has. Now, of course, as we've learned before, reports aren't necessarily science. They're more like guesses, but reports are still useful and are still cited because they can give us potential things to keep an eye out for. And according to this article by ARS, Cruise, the driverless car startup that's now a subsidy of General Motors, has announced plans to launch a fully driverless taxi service by the end of next year. That would be 2019 for the record. But a new report from the information suggests that the company still needs to make a lot of progress to hit this ambitious target. In recent months, Cruise has been ramping up testing efforts in a roughly 20 square mile area in and around downtown San Francisco. Sources familiar with the testing effort told the Information's Amir Efrati that Cruise vehicles still had significant limitations, as will any new technology. Now, again, before anyone starts commenting, I know that the limitations can be overcome in theory. Can they be overcome on a mass scale? Yes, even potentially that. But let's look at what some of these limitations are. Cruise cars frequently swerve and hesitate, Efrati reports. They sometimes slow down or stop if they see a bush on the side of a street or a lane-dividing pole, mistaking it for an object in their path. In one case, Efrati says Cruise employees trimmed a bush ahead of a demonstration for journalists to make sure the car wouldn't swerve while driving past it. Which, by the way, yeah, things like that you want to keep in mind. When they have like a public demonstration of one of these self-driving autonomous vehicles, they have that road trimmed and spruced up so that absolutely nothing can go wrong if they can help it. And so that's why most of these public test demonstrations are extremely successful, because they have groomed the road well in advance so that nothing can go wrong. Testing these things in the real world obviously show a very different story. Cruise employees have the option of riding in Cruise vehicles as they travel around San Francisco, but there's a downside to doing so. Self-driving car rides are often slower than a ride in a human vehicle, sometimes as much as 10 to 20 minutes slower, which I don't know about you. I'm personally patient, but a lot of people aren't, and especially in the streets of San Francisco, LA, New York, you think people are going to want to add 10 to 20 minutes onto their ride. A big reason for that, some San Francisco intersections and streets are blacklisted, in some cases temporarily, and the cars must take circuitous routes around them. So yeah, if those roads ever opened up, then yeah, that would probably speed up the process, but they're blacklisted for a reason. An intersection might be blacklisted because its traffic light is too faint, because it has a complex roundabout, or because it requires a difficult lane merge. All situations that are not an issue when you've got a driver behind the wheel, it should be noted. According to a report, Cruise vehicles, quote, can't easily handle two-way residential streets that only have room for one car to pass at a time. That's because Cruise cars treat the street as one lane and always prefer to be in the center of a lane, and oncoming traffic causes the cars to stop. And the funny thing is, I actually know exactly what we're talking about because I was in San Francisco fairly recently, and we were going up a lane. It was made for a hill. It was made for two cars, but there were cars parked on each side. So effectively it was one lane, and cars had to, kind of get out of the way and take turns. And a driverless vehicle does not know that, so they don't know how to deal with it. And Could you program it to learn that? Probably, but that's an anomaly of a situation, and how many anomalies can you program into these? I don't know. It's just something worth thinking about. Other situations that give cruise vehicle troubles: distinguishing between motorcycles and bicycles. I'm not sure why that would be an issue. That has a hard time distinguishing between the two, but apparently it does do something. Entering tunnels, which can interfere with the car's GPS sensors, of which there are a lot in places like San Francisco and downtown LA. U-turns. So the things don't U-turn very well, which is funny because every time I get... How many times have you started an Uber or a Lyft ride, or really anything, you put it in and it says, oh, make a U-turn right away? What do the driverless cars do at that point? Do they just stand there because they don't make U-turns very well? Construction zones, definitely worth taking note of, because construction is everywhere in LA and in San Francisco, and if your cars can't figure out what to do about it, then they're not much use, are they? And Cruise is tackling some of the nation's most challenging roads. A GM spokesperson declined to discuss Efrati's reporting on the record, but referred to us to an October blog post by CEO Kyle Vogt explaining why Cruise has chosen to focus on testing in the complex driving environment of San Francisco. So instead of pointing to another engineer or another car dealer, the CEO who is supposed to be selling this, it happens. Quote, our vehicles encounter challenging and often absurd situations up to 46 times more often than other places self-driving cars are tested, Vogt wrote. It was a not very subtle dig at the industry leader Waymo, which is focused on testing cars in the much less challenging streets of Phoenix suburbs, of which of course, if you want to test these things and human lives are at risk, you're going to test in the less challenging areas first. It just makes sense. But he responds, testing in the hardest places first means we'll get to scale faster than starting with the easier ones, Vogt argue. In other words, the limitations outlined in Efrati's reporting might simply reflect that Cruise has chosen to focus on an unusually challenging driving environment, not a sign that Cruise engineers are making notably slow progress. Well, yeah, but just because you test in the more complex area right from the start doesn't mean you're going to make any progress faster. The cars do have limitations, and they have a lot of limitations. And, technology is advancing fast. Maybe they'll get it done by next year. But, I don't know what the difference between a motorcycle and a bicyclist would be for an autonomous vehicle, but I'm sure it's a significant problem and they need to fix it. And San Francisco has so many challenges, so many tricky roads, so many hills, and very, very impatient people. It's a bad combination. You usually start at the bottom because you want to get the very basic problems out of the way before you start tackling the complex issues, which Cruise seems to be doing the exact opposite. They want to tackle the complex situations first and then tackle the basics later, which might work, but from my experience, there's a reason dancers are always practicing the basics, even at an expert level, because to forget the basics means nothing works. Maybe it's different for autonomous vehicles. It probably is, but, I'm just saying. Okay. That argument makes perfect sense, but it still leaves a big question about whether Cruise can achieve the goal of launching a commercial taxi next year. I'm going to just say now, no, I don't think so. I'll go along optimistically. I'll say 2 years. Maybe. Sorry, I'm trying not to bring my personal doubt and bias into this, but we'll just say 2 years. Waymo's driverless cars were able to navigate most road conditions way back in 2015. BS. But the company spent 2 more years on additional testing before it felt confident that it could respond safely in every possible situation its cars might encounter. Well, you know what? If it can respond to every situation, the cars would be out there by now. They would be. It's like that claim Uber made, like, oh, we had freight trucks that have been delivering things for, got a message from Lyft, delivering packages for months, and then declined to say exactly how many trips they had made and how many vehicles. Like, yeah, no. If you solved it, they'd be out there. It's just that simple. Let's see here. And I think that's it. So anyway, that's what the Cruise car looks like. Cute little car. Nothing against the car itself. It's an ambitious effort, I will admit, and I do think Uber and Lyft need more competition. Just having two companies is not enough. It really isn't. Especially since the situation you have one company that's a pit bull and you have another company that's kind of subservient, really, to the pit bull. It's kind of a sad situation to look at. But I don't know. You see, these articles are always interesting because it's like they acknowledge all the problems, but still the cars are going to be fit ready before you know it. I have been reading these articles for like 4 years now. Now, I have not had the YouTube channel that long, but I have been reading about autonomous cars for 4 years, and it's always like a year or two away. It's always a year or two away. So that's why I'm so like, I don't know. It's not really something I personally believe in. And they still don't acknowledge other problems like rain and fog, which fog really, truly, significantly alters these cars' ability to perform. And I was just on a road trip. We're not too far out from Orange County. When I was going up the Grapevine, it was foggy. A driverless car would shut down. And that is a very dangerous place to shut down. And on a road trip, guess what? The cars might not have GPS service. Now, some might argue, well, we're not using these cars for road trips, but they're supposed to be used for everything. You should be able to say, hey, I'm going to go to New York and I'm going to punch in the code and I'm going to, just let it go. And yeah, not ready yet. Not ready. And even though it doesn't rain often in California, it still rains. It's going to rain next week, apparently. And what do the driverless cars do in the rain? What happens when the tire slips on like a pothole with water? What does the driverless car do at that point? They're all the little things that haven't quite convinced me, and I don't think they've convinced the public. Some people believe they're coming, and yeah, that's their right to do it, to feel that way. So I feel it sound like a broken record at this point because these cars, I've just never believed in them, and I still don't believe in them. And we'll see if Cruise actually gets them here by next year. Now, if they do, I will make a video and I'll say, okay, you got me wrong. They're here. But yeah, I mean, that quote were like, oh, Waymo figured out all the problems in 2015, but they still waited. Really? Why? Why wait if you've got it figured out? Because they don't have it figured out. They want to tell you they've got it figured out. They want the investors to keep investing. Oh, we're almost there. We're almost there. But can someone actually demonstrate these things working on mass scale? No. Can anyone demonstrate them working safely? No. There's been too many crashes for that. Can anyone prove that these are cheaper than outsourcing the drivers like you and me to use our own vehicles and just pay us a commission? No, they haven't. They haven't proven any of this. And until they do, it's smoke and mirrors. But as always, what do you guys think? I would love to know. Comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe. If you enjoy the videos I make, consider becoming a Patreon member for $1 a month. Oh, and I almost forgot. I wanted to open it this way and I completely forgot. I'm so sorry. That little road trip that I told you about, I actually want to thank, personally, the people who do contribute to Patreon, because we were in a situation where we did not have gas money to do the road trip. It's true. We just didn't. And a few days before, I looked in the Patreon account, which there was like over $100 in there because I don't cash it out every month. I just cash it out when I feel like it. And so thanks to you guys, I was able to get gas and come home. So thank you very much. Your Patreon support does help. And in this case, it was a lifesaver. So thank everyone that you see in the credits at the end. Thank you very much for your support. It was a huge help. And as always, blame responsibly. Have a good one.